Yeah, we are live, but we haven't started the stream. We're going to let people come in for a few more minutes. We have the looped video saying we'll start soon, and then I'll do the final intro right before we'll start.
So where am I right now? I'm just seeing this Calexit "we will start soon" thing.
Yeah, you're
Okay.
basically backstage is what it
okay.
would be called. So you're not on the main screen, but we can see you. You can see us.
Yeah. Okay. No,
and
I
again,
don't see anything. Yeah, I can't. I just see that image. Yeah.
We'll go live here in just a second. Oh. Okay, we're going to get started here in just a second. All right, let's get started. We're going to get started here in just a second. Let's do the intro. Okay, this is the Calexit meeting where we take any questions from anybody out there, people collecting signatures, whether you're in San Luis Obispo, San Francisco, Marin County, Oakland, Humboldt, Eureka, Fresno, Clovis, San Diego, Santa Monica, East Los Angeles, West Los Angeles,
Placer County,
Riverside, San Bernardino, or anywhere else in California. People continue to collect signatures and support Calexit from around the nation. So we're here to take questions for anybody that has any. First, we're going to go to Heron. Heron, do you have any questions you'd like to ask?
Nope.
Okay. Kristen, we're going to go to questions with you. We're not going to do what we did last time where we did like 10 to 12. You can have one or two.
Okay. Well, I'll start then with, you didn't mention San Mateo, so I am collecting
San Mateo.
In San Mateo County. And I was wondering if you have a lead person who I can talk to about coordinating efforts. Maybe we could set up a table at the farmer's market or something.
Let me find that. Yeah, let me find that. 1 second. For Dominic Lechasseur, we talked to you the other day. We can't, it says your device isn't connected. We're not able to let you in.
Maybe retry.
Let me make a note, and then I can give him a notice.
To answer your question, Kristen, sorry. We do have people all over the Bay Area, all over California. I believe we do have someone just south of San Mateo who goes into San Mateo regularly and gathers signatures there as well. So we can get their contact info and get you set up with them.
Okay.
If you're okay, I think I'd like to provide a couple of updates, Marcus.
Yeah.
So first off, some may have noticed that we did not do a TikTok live stream tonight due to personal life reasons. Our San Diego rep, who was also the person who was hosting the TikTok Q&A live streams, is no longer associated with Calexit. So it's unfortunate, but we're moving on. In the meantime, we're working on some temporary workarounds for that. We have a supporter on TikTok, Serendipity. We will be live streaming. Well, they will be live streaming next week and hosting us.
I'm taking this.
Okay, 1 second. We will have most likely a few weekday Q&A get-togethers on there, but then they're only able to actually host us for a couple of weeks because of health stuff coming up in their life. So what I am going to ask for everybody who is a supporter, who also is on TikTok, has a TikTok, whatever, please look up the Head of Calexit channel on TikTok, my profile, and follow along. Once there are enough followers on there, I can host a live stream without having to rely on anyone else. The other update is that well, actually, no. I'll leave it at one update. I'll let you go ahead.
No, go ahead. Do the updates. Do the updates. I'm just getting ready to answer questions.
Okay.
Knock them out.
So the other update is an action item for everybody. We are at roughly 120,000 signatures gathered of the 544,000, whatever. We call it 600,000. We have roughly 25,000 people who have signed up and registered support, as we have asked. So we can safely say to, state legislators, if they ask, right? If they ask, what's the level of support you're seeing? 120,000 signatures already gathered and roughly 25,000 people ready to be mobilized to gather more. So if you are part of that 25,000 people, here's your task. We, in the next, I think 2 to 3 weeks, are going to be mobilizing you all of us. We need to get out there en masse and gather signatures. And we are going to flood California for a few weekends in a row. The plan is, if we have 25,000 people who are all out there gathering signatures, and everyone gathers 5 signatures, well, 5 times 25 is 125. 125,000 signatures on top of the 120,000 we already have. Basically, we will be able to double the total number of signatures gathered by doing this. That would put us at close to the halfway mark. Close. Now, as some people have heard Marcus state in the past, usually with initiatives, petitions, and such, no matter how much support there is, kind of can't do it without paid signature gatherers. Usually you got to get between 1/3 and 1/2, and then those paid signature gatherers get the rest, and then you've got the signatures you need. Oh, hey, Gabby, good to see you. So that is the plan. In the next couple of weeks, Marcus and I will be sending out a mass email to everyone with instructions on how to pick a place, when, where, why, how, all of it. We're also putting together a training session for people for how to have the talk with people. Do you want to, Marcus?
We're blowing up with questions.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm gonna hand it over to Marcus because
No, you can finish the intro.
We've got so many questions. Go ahead.
Okay. First, we're going to go with Dominic. We'll get you in a second, but first, we're going to go with Alien Isolationist Mapper. Thank you for asking your questions, Alien Isolationist Mapper. We're going to address all your questions. Dominic had some questions. We're going to address those too. This is so we can address your questions. So, Calexit is a long shot, and you know it. To even begin to have The support of California, you'll need a 2-state solution, as Northern Californians will never go for this. Just so he's not done.
I'm a Northern Californian. I'm the head of Calexit. I love this shit, man. You're
curse.
wrong.
We can't curse. I see our state as 2 states vastly different from each other. One has a population of 24 million, one with a population of 16 million. I see the lower 10 counties of 24 million supporting your movement, but I don't see us in the upper 48 supporting this. So wanted to let this person be heard. I hope you saw that we posted all their points. So here you go. Trump got 6 million votes, in case you forgot that. So we are liberal, just to let people know, did you forget Trump got millions of votes? This will never happen. It's a long shot. You must not know what you're talking about. So I put every comment from Alien Isolationist Mapper. You have been able to make your comment. We've posted them all. Everybody can see what you're talking about. Now we're going to explain how you're dead wrong and you're going to get schooled. Ready? So here's how it goes. 2016 to 2017, it was 32% Californians, according to Reuters, Ipsos, and Stanford University Little Hoover Institute said that they supported full-blown secession. Not let's talk about it, but let's get out. Both those surveys showed about 15.7 to 16.5% additional people saying that they were undecided on the topic of secession. What that means is that you're looking at about 51% of the California population, according to Reuters, Ipsos, and Stanford University, around February to March 2017, who were not opposed to discussing full-blown secession. Well, I guess I said that and we lost everybody. Okay. Well, anyways, maybe people don't want to hear that. 51% basically of all Californians said that they support full-blown secession, according to Reuters, Ipsos, and Stanford University's Little Hoover Institute, surveys taken in February 2017. No survey has contradicted that. Now, there was a Berkeley survey that came out and only asked, are you for Calexit or against it? And that came out with 32% for and 2/3 against. The Reuters, Ipsos, and Stanford University Little Hoover Institute surveys never did that. They asked 3 questions, just to make it real simple. 3 questions on a survey is radically different than just 2 options on a survey. Radically different. Left or right, or I don't know. So Stanford and Reuters both found about 47.5, which is in the margin of error of 3 to 5% for all national polls, meaning that was potentially over half of Californians were supportive of Calexit. Now let's talk about the most recent election. A lot of people have said, I see that you're posting more comments. I'm going to address these comments and then we'll go to additional comments. So a lot of people have said, hey, Trump has all these voters. What about that? Yeah, the only area where Trump voters are the majority is in the far northern 1/5 of California. That's it. So your estimates about 48 are wildly off. Jason's from Placer County. I'm from Fresno County. So we live in the forest and the Central Valley that you are claiming are all hardcore conservative, and we live there our whole lives. He's pushing 40. I'm pushing 50. It's not like you say. We're actually from there. So I understand that those areas were traditionally conservative, but a lot of Republicans make the mistake of saying that Orange County and San Diego are still Republican bastions. No, they're not. So I understand that Donald Trump won the election in many of these areas. True. I had a lot of Republican friends gloat about that, and they would say, look, Trump swept California. He had all these voters for him. See how much of California he took over? And they'd show me a map of just red and blue. And I said, wow, that looks intimidating. Can you show me the color variation by percent change of vote? Of the 5 Republicans who like to gloat to me, not one of them knew what the hell I was talking about. I had to educate them and go, okay, when you give people 2 options, it looks bad. When you give them 3, suddenly a different picture emerges. So when we look at Orange County, San Diego, Fresno County, people said, oh, Republican bastions. Trump won. Trump slipped a light blue county to light pink. If you've been in politics for 10 years, if you've talked to people who've worked for the National Democratic Party, if you talk to actual professional lobbyists, that's not nothing. That doesn't mean anything. It means you won by like 2 to 3%, maybe 5. That could be washed out the next election. Anybody who knows politics knows that. So Going light pink to light blue or light blue to light pink doesn't mean anything. It's a fluke. It can be undone the very next election. If you look at the voting patterns in Orange County, San Diego, Fresno, and much of the Central Valley, what you'll notice is over the last 10 to 12 years, a pattern of going hardcore red gradually every election to light blue, showing a demographic change that lines up with the California Department of Finance and the United States government of census. Namely put, there's a lot of brown-skinned people called Asians and Latinos, and typically in urban settings, they turn liberal, even if they're in conservative Central Valley or Orange County or San Diego, typically the way that they go. And so when you look at those trends and you compare Asians and Latin people to Caucasian people, and you look at the number of births per couple, they're dominating white people. Just straight up. That's the way it is. California Department of Finance has projected that. U.S. Census has projected that. Nobody's disagreed with that for the last 2 decades. So that's basically it. The trajectory here in California is to go more liberal simply because of the brown-skinned people, and nothing's going to change that. Secondly, Jay's been on the ground and I've been on the ground, and we've literally seen it with our eyes. So let's get somebody from the area who's as versed in politics as us to tell us we don't know what we're talking about, and the U.S. Census got it wrong in the California Department of Finance. So those Trump voters are a minority. Secondly,
Can I
Yep.
just throw in one small little point here that goes along with it all is in a land of 22 million registered voters, those 6 million voters are not ever going to outweigh the rest of the 22 million voters. They will not. It's impossible. Statistics, facts, it's just the way things work. It's how the universe goes. Numbers don't lie, right? 6 million of the 22 million, the whole rest of that group just swamps them. So Marcus brings up this point pretty often of, won't Republicans just leave? And the hardcore Republicans who hate California, they've already left. The Republicans that are still here, those 6 million, they're
Going
here
nowhere.
because they have family, they have jobs, they have friends, they are born and raised Californians. They also know that Californian Republicans are a different thing from the national GOP Republicans. So says the national GOP
Thank you.
Republicans. They themselves say that there is a big difference between them and the California Republicans. They might vote with us most of the time, but they're not really us. They're still California. Just like the way that they say things like California's not part of America. Californians aren't American. California way of doing things is antithetical to America. Well, I'm sorry that, trying to, uphold the founders' values of decency and, society that is built on, peace and respect for the most part, right? Sorry if that's so antithetical to the United States of America and what it's become. I guess that just kind of proves even more that it's not really a long shot. It's much more likely that we'll actually get kicked out of the union by the Republicans than us even having to finish this movement that we started.
I'm still going to go through an answer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm just trying to, point out that there have been a lot of things that have been said on these comments that is just wholly inaccurate.
Garbage. Yeah.
Um,
Wildly inaccurate.
well, and I'm not going to say garbage. I'm just going to say wholly inaccurate. You
Ignorant?
haven't seen these things going on? Then open your eyes, pay attention, get out there and look for it because it's happening.
They're blown up with questions. I'd like to start.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, sorry. So when we're talking about Trump voters, it's only the northern 1/5 of California where they're the majority. As Jason said, all the other places, they're basically the minority. I have a lot of Trump voters in my family in LA, in the Bay, in Fresno. They're going nowhere. California lost so many people. It lost a congressional seat for the first time since the 1970s, which was the Golden State era. That's basically unheard of. So we've lost so many Republicans because they couldn't stand it. If you're a Republican and you're here, you're not going anywhere. If it's so horrible, you would have already left. I mean, you can't bag on California and say it's so horrible, get out, so horrible, get out, massive people flooding, and then still stick around and go, well, I technically think it's so horrible. No, you don't. You would have left. Or you can't because your business here, your family's here, your kids. So those people are going nowhere, and they're not going to abandon their family. If they would have already left because we've had the largest exodus of Republicans in the 200 years of California history as part of an American state. Period, by far. Nothing comes close. Secondly, the other thing is that a lot of people go, well, there are a lot of Californians who voted for Trump, especially Latin people. Well, as a Latin person, I can tell you it's for jobs. It's not because they love Trump and they love white supremacy and Mexican people love being called racist like Trump did to us. No, it's not because we love Stephen Miller, the avowed white supremacist who was declared that way by the Congressional Hispanic Caucus running the Immigration League. No, it's because Latin people are a hardworking people. Most of them have independent contractor status. They mow lawns. They run a truck service. They repair things. They take money on the side for hard work. They need to work. The Democratic Party, right or wrong, said we're going to shut down the entire economy and none of you should work because of COVID. Additionally, because a lot of them were undocumented, they couldn't qualify for the PPP loans. So they were totally screwed. How do I know this? Because Latin people voted against Governor Newsom in the first recall election. And a lot of politicians in California couldn't explain it. How did all these they love Trump? No, they want jobs. And right or wrong, they think Trump equals jobs. So that's not Californians turning and backing Trump because they love his ideology. There is no majority of Trump voters in California except for the top 1/5. Additionally, if you look at the economy of California, the top 1/5 is not connected to the economy. It literally means nothing economically. They provide almost nothing. They provide water and some timber. Those are survivability issues. Those are not economic issues. So there's really no economic power in the North, and there's no political power, and those are the people who like it. Finally, like Jason was saying, you don't get to leave unless we let you. That's just the way it works. So the American Constitution says you cannot leave a state unless the majority of people in that state say you can. That's in the Constitution. Period. End of story. The people in the far North who backed Trump are called the Jefferson Movement. There's another one, New California, and they were very friendly with a guy called Donald Trump. 2/3 of Californians hate Donald Trump in the 2016 to 2020 period, and 2/3 of Californians again voted against Donald Trump in this recent election. I've heard lots of Republicans talk about, look at all those Republican voters. Great, they're no more than 1/3. That means nothing. That means you lose and you got to suck it up. Sorry, democracy. Secondly, you can't leave unless we tell you you can. That's just the way the American government works. Third, counties have no right to sue for petition at the federal level, period. You can't go to Congress and redress your grievances because you don't exist at the federal level. Counties are creations of the state purely. So they don't even have an ability to go to the feds and complain, and they'd have to get the approval from the state, which they're never going to do because you sided with Trump, who 2/3 of us hate. So really stupid idea, guys, to back a guy who 2/3 of the state hates, say this is our guy, and then put yourself in a situation where you need our votes to leave. Dumb. But you did it, and now you can never undo it. So that's why that's never going to go. That's why we don't really care about Jefferson's votes. We don't need them. It means nothing, and we can do whatever we want. You can't really get out of it. Sorry. So moving on to the next.
I would also point out that that area is very, very sparsely populated. You look at that huge chunk of the top of California, it's a big piece, and there are just a few thousand people. I mean, come on. It's like saying this small anthill is going to overthrow the entire city. It's a tiny little anthill, and they are tiny little ants in a city of people, millions and millions, right? Thinking for 1 second that somewhere like that would be able to actually, like, I don't know, prevent the movement of the people, it tells me that maybe a statistics refresher is needed, maybe a little civics refresher is needed. There are the way things work, and then there's everything else. And a lot of what you pointed out is the everything else. Now, I will, in fairness to you, alien isolationist mapper, I will say I do agree that when the voters vote, they do regularly, first and foremost, think about economics. That's why people are so down with Calexit, though, because American economy, California economy, even while being bled dry by the United States,
Still world's fifth.
remove the leech, and we're one of the economic powerhouses of the world.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's it. It is a good point. It is valid. Yes, people do think about economics, and that's why they support Calexit, because they are thinking about economics. They are thinking about the future of themselves, their families, their loved ones, and they see that what we're doing has a viable potential future path, and sitting back and doing nothing and allowing from my heart to yours to take over, that's not viable. That's not smart. That's not an option.
We'll do another crystal knocked refresher here in a minute. When we're talking about two states, yes, I've heard that. But again, where are the boundary lines? So I was born and raised in Fresno. I constantly have debates with Republicans where they're telling me, Fresno's conservative. And I go, no, it's not. Have you been here in the last 15 years? We got majority liberal. Now, it wasn't 65%. It was like 55%. But it had gone from hardcore red to less red to light pink to purple, and then to started going to blue, and then a little bit more blue. And if you look at the last 5 elections, the trend has been very clear. None of the Republicans that I've argued with are aware of the trend of the last 5 elections. They only look at the last election with Trump and go, see? And I go, that's a blip from light pink to light blue. None of them are aware of the previous decade worth of elections. None of them are aware of the demographic projections of Latin and Asian people being the dominant group, having children going forward and having a propensity to be liberal voters. And none of them are aware that Orange County and San Diego are no longer liberal bastions. Remember, I just told you, all these guys came up to me and said, look, Trump won. I have this map showing half of California is red. And I go, show me color by percent change. You didn't go red to blue. You went light blue to light pink. Not one of them knew that map. So I see a lot of people saying this, and I'm like, why am I educating you on the 5 color gradient map instead of the 2? How come I'm telling you about the last 5 elections in your conservative district? Why am I pointing out what the U.S. Census is to you? How come you guys don't know this when you're telling me how I got it wrong? I can't tell you the number of, I'm sorry, conservative white people who told me I got it wrong because they know someone from the Valley. And I go, who do you know? And I go, well, the farmers are conservative. Great. They're no more than 5% of the population. So, and they go, well, the farmers run Fresno. Great. In America, one person, one vote. So it doesn't matter if they have all the money. Why am I explaining basic electoral math to people? Just because you're a billionaire doesn't mean you get 1 billion votes. You get 1. So if there's 1 million Mexicans and there's maybe 1,000 conservative Caucasian people, who wins that election? Who do you think? Yeah, that's called democracy and demographic change. It's inevitable and you can do nothing about it. By the way, Fresno's called the future demographic profile of California because we have the percentage of Latinos that the rest of California gets to 20 years later. So we actually have a higher diversity ratio in Fresno than the rest of California. And the rest of California is projected, according to the California Department of Finance, to end up looking more resemblant of Fresno's level of high diversity. So most people don't know that. You got to be from here and you got to be a progressive to know that. So let's move on to the next one here. Polls are not, oh, I'm sorry.
Can we take a break from questions for a second and provide another update?
Sure.
just to break it up.
Sure,
'cause,
sure.
sometimes the monotony. So another update is that this week we will be sending out a mass email to everyone who participated, joined in with the annual Global Summit on Self-Determination. In this email is going to be the draft agreement that, should we all sign and agree to it, or, multiple parties at the very least sign and agree to it, we will have officially started an international governmental organization and an international non-governmental organization, for which we will then start an international foundation so that we can actually start helping make some headway in the world. And, it's started by Calexit, but this is something that Calexit will be a member of, a part of. It will be much more like the United Nations if they actually did what, they said they were there to do. So you can look forward to having representation in the United Self-Determined Nations coming sometime soon. Most likely, we will have this finalized before the signature gathering deadline is done. So it's in the works. It's nearly there. And hopefully sometime in the next month, we will be able to announce to the world that Calexit has yet again led the way. And this time, we're leading the way on starting a thing. And we're not going to be the sole controller. There will be no sole controller. It will be very much a group effort of people and entities from around the world to benefit humanity. So if you're part of Calexit and you've been supporting it, you've been supportive of what we've been doing this whole time, just know that you get to give yourself a pat on the back for having supported such a huge endeavor.
Okay.
Back to you, Marcus.
All right. I'm going to go to more questions here. Please post your questions. Alien Isolationists, we appreciate you posting all these. Okay, here we go. Ballots are not polls. Technically, you're correct, but basically you're wrong. So a lot of politicians going back to the 1990s use polls to indicate public support, and then they run the ballot. They won't run the ballot if they don't think there's public support, because that's how you look stupid as a politician. You back an idea that the public overwhelmingly hates or doesn't support. That's dumb. So a lot of them run polls in the background to find out, and they can use that as an indicator. So when we look at Brexit, same thing. They did a lot of polling before, and then that's why they were able to get an organization for that. Same thing with Scottish independence, same thing with Catalonia, same thing with every presidential election, same thing with almost any idea that any presidential candidate proposes. So technically you're correct, but no, not really. Ballots can be used as a form of poll if we look at the international community. When you have a vote, say in Catalonia, Spain, Spain said it doesn't count because we don't recognize it. The entire world did not agree with that. So Catalonia went ahead and had the vote, and the entire planet recognized them as moving for independence. Kurdistan did the exact same thing. Under international law and international precedent, basically once you have a vote that's legal and seems legit, and the world stage and a majority of your people, Brexit set the threshold at only 52%, it's quite low, then basically you're considered as a people who want to become independent, and you get a lot of at least international attention. And if you look at all the groups who did that, New Caledonia, Catalonia, Kurdistan, I think Greenland, etc., it follows a distinct pattern. So that's basically, yes, technically you're correct, but as far as what we're doing, it's not. People will use much more critical thinking of what this entails when it is voted on. Hope so, because the plan is to call for a blue ribbon panel investigation where the California government does an in-depth investigation of Calexit and produces a report so that people would read that before the vote. So totally agree with you. By the way, we think you're going to lose on this one. We think when anybody looks at the facts on Calexit, there's no conclusion they can come to except that Calexit's a winner and it's the best idea that happens. That's why we constantly say you don't have to be for it. just before looking into it because we know what's going to happen when you do. So we're totally planning on that happen.
Yeah, and if I may, we've actually noticed. I heard Marcus say we think. Not to pick semantics on you, brother.
Do it.
But we have actually noticed. We don't just think, we have noticed people who are like vehemently opposed, once they learn the actual facts about this, they're not vehemently opposed. People who are on the fence, when they learn the facts about this, they're like hardcore for Calexit. You can't learn these facts and look away. You can't know a thing and then unknow it. It, again, the universe works a certain way.
We haven't met one person. We've talked to at least over 1,000 people. We've never met one person who was against Calexit, and when they were educated on the facts and were willing to accept information, didn't immediately switch. What we have seen is people who ask 15 questions in a row, we answer all 15 and they just go, well, I don't know. Well, I don't know. You lost the debate and you just don't want to concede. So there's that. You're a poor sport. Why don't you go, eat some sour grapes? We hope it is, and we think that we're totally going to win. By the way, we wrote a 200-page policy book for anybody out there. By the way, a lot of people have been trying to embarrass me and embarrass us, and we're crushing every single interview we get. So find that person who can make me look stupid and bring them on here, because so far I'm winning every debate, and I'm just going to prove that now with you. So let's move on to this next point. By the way, I just want to point out, we're going to address every single question Alien Isolationist Mapper did, and we're going to crush every single question. So post anything you want. We can answer anything.
Before we answer this one, another quick update.
Yeah. Let's go to update. Update.
Just trying to switch it up.
Update.
So it's not just a bunch of information.
Yeah.
Inundation of information.
Yeah.
So, man, now I'm forgetting it. Oh, dude, I just had it, and then I started focusing on that states thing. We'll come back to it.
Okay. All right, here we go to comments. Have you noticed that gas prices are coming down in 55 days? The economy matters when people vote. 100%, and that's why we know everybody's going to back Calexit. So the book is called Global California by Professor Abraham Lowenthal. He's a professor out of the University of California, Long Beach. He's now promoted and works at the Schwarzenegger Center at the University of Southern California. He is the foremost expert on international trade coming into the west coast of California, and one of the top 10 most informed people on international trade, period. He said it's a financial loss for California to be part of America, just straight up, period. I'll go over a couple things. One, Governor Schwarzenegger traveled to Asia, signed 100 contracts, had to wait 5 years under George W. Bush to get those approved, publicly criticized W. Bush for hurting the California economy by telling 100 companies you cannot sell products to customers who are willing to give you hundreds of millions of dollars. And you had to wait 5 years. Then Barack Obama, the Democrat, sat on them for another 3 to 5 years. And Schwarzenegger criticized them both, because when it comes to international trade, it doesn't matter. When you have 100 companies who have business deals with Asian companies and we're ready to collect hundreds of millions and billions of dollars, and then the federal government says, wait 3 to 5 to 10 years until I feel like it's okay, that is ruinous for business. Ask any business person, they'll say that. So when that's gone, we're talking about a massive economic surplus, finally. Or additionally, California is a donor state. We lose about 20 to 100 billion every year. And because of that, we have to extra tax ourselves. We've asked businesses, if we got rid of state income tax, would that be good or bad for business? Everybody says good. When we ask businesses, if you got rid of all federal regulations and you only had to do state, 50% regulatory overhead removal, is that good for business or not? Everybody says yes. In fact, what we told is economic boom. Additionally, America has such a bad reputation around the world. Perhaps you remember those lies about weapons of mass destruction, where the president of America lied to the UN and the entire international community with Colin Powell and embarrassed all of America. And then perhaps you remember that thing called Afghanistan, where we lost after 20 years and it looked like the pullout in Vietnam, and then the country reverted back to terrorism. And then perhaps you've heard about Libya, that's now a basket case and a homeland for ISIS, and then Syria, that where we promoted the head of ISIS and Al-Qaeda. And then perhaps you've heard about America's involvement in a thing that the International Criminal Court calls a genocide. Well, whenever you do those things, what happens is California sells laptops, smartphones, computer software, Hollywood films, and agricultural produce that are bought around the world. We supply 90% of the strawberries to the entire planet. Guess what happens when America does something stupid? Nobody buys California products. In fact, we lost $6 billion in sales being associated to America's nasty image. And if you read Global California, you'll realize that California doesn't need America for international trade. Yao Ming, the Chinese basketball star, literally is a billionaire, not from his time in the NBA, but because he bottled wine from California and just put California wine. Chinese people bought 1 billion bottles and he became a billionaire. All he had to do was put California on the wine bottle. Took off. If you look at our fruit and produce, it says made in California. If you look at our laptops and smartphones, it says made in California. We already have an international recognition. It hurts us to be part of America for international trade. We're also not able to make the deals that we want. We lose sales. Additionally, we're a donor state. So you're right. A lot of people are backing Calexit because they realize that it is a financial loss being part of America and that our economy would be massively better if we didn't have to do that. One of the things I love to point out is that in 2019, we lost $20 billion, which is the low end. $20 billion is what experts have said it would take to permanently wipe out homelessness in the Bay Area forever. Not for a day, not for a year, forever. In 4 years, LA. So in 1 year, we lose the ability to eliminate homelessness in the Bay Area. The poop and needles in San Francisco is talked about by conservatives everywhere. They don't know that they took our money and that's why we can't fix that problem. It's your fault. Finally, let's look at this. Update.
I remembered the update shortly after.
Boom, update.
Beware, there is an SF Chronicle article going to be dropping. A huge deep dive kind of article. Lots and lots of time this dude has spent with the SF Chronicle lately, giving them the whole meat and potatoes of Calexit.
Oh my God, dude.
From the beginning.
Raheem is a beast. That guy is a burrowing animal. He will burrow down to the Earth's core.
And I believe, isn't it tomorrow that the article's?
It's either tomorrow or it's next Sunday. Sometime in the next 6-7 days it's coming out. And you never know till the article comes out, but we think it's going to be a massive expose. They've spent 2 weeks on this. We've spent about 16 hours talking to them. They've interviewed about 4 or 5 people. In our experience, going back to 2015 with news articles, we've only had that happen once or twice, and it's when they do like a 6 or 8 part series. So we're expecting some super mega deep dive inside thing coming out. It also makes sense that it's coming from San Francisco Chronicle. As you know, the CBS San Francisco television news article that covered us massively exploded our support in the Bay Area. I mean, we're on our 3rd neuroscientist who's called us because of that CBS San Francisco news piece. So it would make sense that because that blew up.
Also stated that they cannot go anywhere.
Can I find
working that during? Well, don't show.
Okay, you're right. Yeah,
even working during the day, they cannot escape the constant barrage of "we need to Calexit" from their patients, from their coworkers.
Yeah.
So again, Northern California really does support Calexit. Also, back in the day, the mayor of Tiburon, when I was living in San Rafael in Marin County, right next door is the town of Tiburon. Very, like, oh my God, disgustingly wealthy.
Yeah.
By and large, so much support from one of the wealthiest towns in California, that the mayor of Tiburon at that time approached us and said, "Hey, I need to attend your meetings. My constituents have demanded this of me, that I get caught up to speed and figure out what we can do to support Calexit." Now, that was back in the day when Calexit support was smaller, when Calexit attention was smaller. Now we've gone tenfold. So does it stand to reason that maybe there is more support given the expansion, or does it seem like there would be vastly less support even though we've been exploding? I'll let you decide. So
something for you to think about.
it could be online, it could be broadcast on TV on their channel, it could be both. So stay tuned to SF Chronicle.
Yeah, we're noticing when you look at the fact that the CBS show in San Francisco did so well, and we received lots of support from that, and the neuroscientists from the Bay Area told us in a private conversation that everyone around him's talking about it to the point that it's making him a little crazy. And then you look at San Francisco Chronicle, another Bay Area publication spending enormous resources and time with staff reporters doing this. We suspect that there's a massive, gigantic well of support spread throughout the entire Bay Area. So we'll go back to some more questions because this is why we're here, to update you and answer questions.
I wanted to ask Rich, says your device isn't connected, but I'm pretty sure you could probably type something in the chat if you had any questions. I know you're really one of the big supporters of the crypto and NFT that we've been working on. So I'm assuming you might want some sort. Yes, what is seen cannot be unseen.
Yeah, I don't want to take these until we get through the other questions of the other person we said we were going to address.
So we have been plugging away on it. We can't actually say too much because, like, you know, for the security of the thing, right? But we keep you in mind, brother. We are going to let you know, as well as everyone else, the moment that the crypto and the NFT are ready to go, you're going to know. Trust me, we will have the mass email out. You're going to get word. Again, can't say too much because we kind of said enough before that someone went and started up a cryptocurrency and call it Cali coin. And they did it just back in January as we were already working on it. So to not let it be undermined, we are not going to give away the name that we are going to be going with, but it is in the works. It is almost done, almost. We've got the bank accounts, we've got the GoFundMe, we've got the Patreon, we've got all of the funding sources finally getting there. And that'll be in the next update after Marcus takes this next round of questions.
Okay. Let's see here. We're trying to get all the questions. Sorry. What did population comments? Trump 6 million, more than a decade in their event. Oh, here we go. As you know, this has to pass in both the House and the Senate. Then all the states would have to vote on this and not be voted by the president. So you are completely wrong. So let's walk through this. As we've said, Texas versus White is the only Supreme Court case on secession. Period. End of story. There is no other one. The Constitution is completely silent on secession. Doesn't say you can do it. Doesn't say you can't, which means you can't refer to that document. Constitution does say there is one and only one place that decides what the law means. It's called the Supreme Court of America, and it's been the way for 200 years. The Supreme Court of America looked at secession, and they said you can secede, quotes, through revolution or consent of the states, period, end quote. It was decided by Salmon Chase. Salmon Chase was personally appointed by a man called Abraham Lincoln. So if we're worried about that. Secondly, consent was never defined. If consent meant amendment, why not say amendment? The decision of Texas versus White came after the Civil War, basically 160 years after the country was formed. If you meant amendment, why did you not say it when they've known about that concept for a century before they made that decision? There's something called the plain language rule in American law. It goes back about 150, 200 years. Basically, if I want to make a law to ban cats, I can't say, let's ban all furry animals. And then when you bring dogs in, I go, well, clearly I meant cats. You have to be specific in the law to what you're talking about. That's called the plain language rule. So if they didn't use the word amendment, how do we know they meant amendment? Secondly, the only people who can say what consent meant is called the Supreme Court. Remember the Constitution? The Supreme Court now is the most conservative they've been in 90 years, according to NPR, and they're beholden to a man called Donald Trump. There's also a guy called Erwin Chemerinsky. He's the top constitutional scholar in all of California and the most cited legal expert in all of America, period. There is no better legal person in all of California and very few in America, and that'd be debatable. He said when asked about Calexit in 2017, simple majority vote of Congress could be all that's required because a simple majority vote of Congress was all that's required to make California a state, period. So the only people who can say that consent means amendment is the Supreme Court. They haven't done that. So you and nobody can say it means automatic amendment process. Secondly, there's some lawyers suggesting that. We have a more respected lawyer saying the opposite. Why the media will not print Texas versus White exists, why the media, if they admit Texas versus White exists, will not admit consent of the states is there, why the media will never mention Erwin Chemerinsky and his interpretation, even though I've told this to 35 reporters, I don't know. But
although, back to that last update, it seems like the SF Chronicle might actually finally be the one to get that news out there.
CBS did a good job, but they were the only ones.
Yeah.
Literally, they were the only ones to take a moment to go, there really is a thing called Texas versus White. It really is the only case on secession, and it really does say consent to the states, and it doesn't use the word amendment. So you can't say it's amendment. No lawyer can say it's amendment. And the top constitutional scholar in California, who basically trumps any other legal expert in America, says it doesn't mean amendment. It means simple majority vote.
Also, the way that law works in the United States of America is that if you mean a thing, you say that thing. If you didn't say that thing ain't part of it. It's just not. If they had said amendment process, then yes, it would be amendment process. Totally.
No debate.
That thing existed. They knew about it. They did not include it. That means it does not get included in this. End of story.
Yep. And the only people who could say otherwise is the Supreme Court, who like Trump. Now let's get to this. The Republicans hate California. They would love to see us gone. Have you ever watched Fox News, Breitbart, Newsmax in the last 3 decades? I'm from the Valley. I have. They constantly talk trash on California. They hate Nancy Pelosi, Maxine Waters, Adam Schiff. All the boogeymen on all the conservative channels for the last 3 decades have been evil, bad, wicked Californians. And Trump even had, when Trump was president, he had a national convention, the Republican National Convention, the last year he was president, on how California is not America. You have to go back to around 1850 to find where one of the 2 political parties had a convention and said this one state's horrible and wrong. You have to go back over 100 years to find where one party did that.
What was happening in the United States around that time?
Something called the Civil War, the pre-stage to the Civil War. Was the last time you saw this, by the way. And they hated New York because some stances for that. So nobody's really seen that. Finally, when you look at Trump and the fact that he said when people are dead and homeless and destitute and beside themselves and in shock with the Palisades fire, I don't know if I want to help because I'm not sure I like you guys. And then Speaker Johnson said the same thing. And then I asked a bunch of people this. Tell me the Republicans who were disgusted by that, who voted for Trump and said, you know, Trump, I love you, I back you, but you cannot talk to fellow Americans this way. There are dead Americans. They're homeless. They're on the ground. They're destitute. You can't talk to them like they're not our citizens. Well, he just did, and no Republican criticized them for it at all.
No one.
Not one. We've asked many people. No one can name any Republicans. So what is that? And then here's the other question we ask you. Tell me the stable country that happens in.
Well, I'd also like to further that and say that, you know, while that was going on, not only were there not Republican folk coming out and saying, hey, you know, we're all Americans here. We need to just America or whatever. They were also doing the opposite of that. They were doubling down and reinforcing that yes, aid to California should be conditional, and here's why. And then justifying, making up self-justification after self-justification on why this is okay to do somewhere where clearly the way that it was formed and the laws and everything says very clearly that's not okay to do. So why is it that all of these people in power decide to do something that is not legal or okay and then get backed up 100%, just hardcore backed up, rather than backed down and refuted?
Yeah, if Republicans are against California leaving, how come none of them said, Mr. Trump, you shouldn't treat them like foreigners who we hate? Those are fellow Americans. That never happened. I dare anybody to find me one Republican who said that. Find one. We've been asking, you guys can't find any. So I say, what stable country? Here's my example. Leeds is the city on the coast in England where the Beatles are from. Let's say there's a tsunami in Leeds, England. People are dead. People are floating around. Bodies bloated. Tsunami. And London looks at them and says, look, I know we speak English. I know we've had this common country, but I don't know if I really want to help you guys. Go ahead and have those bodies float around in the water a couple more days. We'll see. Is that something that happens in a stable Western country? No one says yes. We've even asked reporters. I can't tell you their name, but we've asked 6 reporters that question, and they just go, no, it's not. So let me throw in another piece of tinder. 48% of the Republicans don't view Californians as American, according to Los Angeles Times poll, widely reported last year. Not 10 years ago, not 5 years, not 2 years ago, last year, and really only 6 or 7 months ago. And it was widely covered that half of the Republican Party do not view Californians as American. And then 6 months later, the president and the speaker of that same party said, we're going to treat you as not Americans. Are you really surprised? So when you're talking about how you're going to get Republicans to back this, I got to say, alien isolationist mapper, do you even know your own party? They hate our guts, and they've been saying they want us to go. They held a convention on us going. We're going to get the votes. They're going to kick our ass on the way out, and they definitely want us to go.
I would also, I see that one. Click that one if you would. I want to address this one.
Then I'll crush it after you.
I have been a Green since 18. I am not a Dem. I am not a Republican. I am not a Libertarian. I am not Peace and Freedom. I have been a Green Party member my entire adult voting life. I just turned 39 on the 5th, okay? And Marcus's birthday was yesterday. Give the man some love. I have been a Green, hardcore, staunch Green my entire adult voting life. I have also always supported Calexit. I know that I am not the only Green in California, Oregon, Washington, pretty much anywhere on the Pacific, having just moved back, finally relocated to California from the Pacific Northwest. I can tell you, the Pacific Greens also have a lot of support for Calexit and independence and Cascadia and the Pacific Northwest being its own independent entity from the United States of America. So, it is not actually funny that we think this. And we don't think all liberal folks and all Greens will support this. I know some Greens who don't want to be independent from the United States of America. That's fine. That's their choice. Democracy. Hey. But the vast majority, again, 6 million of the 22 million, right, is never going to outweigh. So 22 minus 6, right? So you're talking something that is vast majority versus ultimate minority. The vast majority of Californians are liberal or independent.
What?
Oh, right.
But this is a
These
new trend. Only the last 2 years, right?
because I was born 2 years ago. That's right.
Whoops. It's been the trend the last 20 years. Whoops.
The vast majority of California are people who think and feel and operate a certain way. The vast majority of California, including California Republicans, got together and chipped in to help out people in Southern California while the wildfires were going on. Back in my home area, when I was a kid, there were massive, massive floods. There was a thing called El Nino, came in and just totally wreaked havoc. And people in my home area, very, very heavily conservative, and I would say probably about 40% conservative. Not majority, but definitely not the minuscule minority. Even there, we all chipped in. We all helped out our fellow Californians. The Palisade fire and the like 3 or 4 fires that all kind of joined together and rampaged around SoCal. While those fires were still raging, Californians across the entire political spectrum, across the entire socioeconomic spectrum, were coming together, chipping in, and helping out our fellow Californians. While America was saying, screw them, they're Californians, not Americans. Screw them if we're going to help them at all, even though we bleed them dry and wouldn't be able to exist without them in the way that we do. Even still, we are not going to help them unless they are going to become pro-Trump, deport everyone who looks like Marcus, while also calling them despicable things, disgusting things. And like, I've known this man for years now. He's not a rapist, a criminal, a drug dealer, a smuggler, a mule, a human trafficker. The dude works for the state of California, for God's sakes. Does analyzing for the state on, gee, is this a good thing to do or not?
Climate change.
So, like, really, why would we ever vilify someone like Marcus in order to get help, potential help, right? Not even a guarantee of help, just a, hey, bow down, lick my boot, bend the knee, and then maybe I might consider potentially one day deciding to help out a little bit. Why would we ever? And this isn't just a liberal or independent or even Republican. I know tons of Republicans, tons of Californian Republicans, and tons of national GOP Republicans. I know people across the entire political spectrum, and I'm telling you, even Republican folk would not say, oh yeah, that's a great deal. Take this absolute lack of any guarantee over doing something that is actually likely going to be beneficial. Why would we vilify Marcus and kick him out and say he's not part of us to have this potential one day maybe they'll help when we're already helping ourselves? We don't need their help because their help comes with conditions that we saw off our own feet, that we make enemies of our best friends, that we do things that are so inane, so freaking pointless, that to even consider it is, for just 1 second to consider it, is a foolish thought. It is a waste, a literal waste of thought. Not many things in life can be a true waste of thought and brain power, but that would be one of them.
Strong.
Can we put up these GoFundMe and Indiegogo? Can you type them in there so that everyone can see?
Do you want me to write this up?
Yeah, just those two.
Okay.
Um,
Then I'd really like to. We're about
Yeah.
30 questions deep. I'd really like to start knocking those out.
yeah.
Okay.
Marcus is typing out and going to put up the links to our GoFundMe and Indiegogo. Also, Calexit's new Calexit LLC YouTube channel. We still have the one that we've been using, but we've also started up another one. That one has a Patreon account attached to it now. That one we will be providing some slightly different content, stuff that's maybe not quite so heavily censored down for any and all viewer types. So, you know, not exactly safe for the kids. There might be some swearing. There might be talk about some dark things going on in the world that, you know, it could be some heavy talk. And if you're not for it, then you're not for it and don't feel obligated. If that's the kind of thing that's going to have you waking up in cold sweats in the middle of the night, maybe do yourself a favor and don't. But if you're interested in exploring some of which part?
What are those last digits?
3754. Sorry. If you're interested in exploring some of the darker sides of humanity and some of the things that we might be able to do as a collective to help combat some of that, counter some of that, to try to make some sort of positive difference in the world, well, again, you can't really figure out what to do with the light if you don't analyze the dark. So we will likely be talking about some very heavy topics there. But again, if that's your sort of thing, if that's your cup of tea, you will be able to join us there coming soon. We've got the GoFundMe, we've got the Indiegogo, and this is all, you know, we need to raise funds so that we can print out tons and tons of initiatives. We want to be able to send a box of printed initiatives to every single one of the 58 counties of California. And then we're probably going to have to still send out more. So printing that much costs some money. Thank God it's not like hundreds of billions of dollars. We're not talking about the entire GDP of California here. We're just talking that we need to raise some funds. That being said, we also do have some pretty big projects that we've been working on and planning and getting going in the background. So if the funding comes in that allows for those sorts of things, we definitely will be, shall we say, making more waves. So with that, I will turn it back over to Marcus to finish out with questions.
Okay, let's funny, you think all liberals and independents will support this? So we had a PhD in political science from Harvard University who was in Los Angeles during the Palisades fire area. And he said to us, you guys in Calexit are underestimating the amount of rage that people have. So I think it's kind of laughable that you would think it's funny that liberals and independents would support this. Are you aware of how angry people are at Trump over what he said about the Palisades fire? The big burst for Calexit was not when we got approval to collect signatures. We got 2 articles. It came after Trump's comments on the Palisades. You can literally date that. You don't have to, anybody can look this up. Look up when we got approval to collect signatures. We got 2 articles. Then look up when the actual flood of articles came. It was after Trump's comments, not before, after. You can literally date that. That's a hard fact. So when we look at that and we look at the LA Times survey showing 48% of Republicans don't view us as American, and we look at the fact that we have multimillionaires who own 6 publicly traded companies, are connected to Shirley Weber, the third highest ranking politician in California, and have nonprofits recognized by California, in addition to 3 neuroscientists, in addition to the former head of the Riverside County Medical Board, in addition to the former head of the California Democratic Party, in addition to staff for President Carter. We never had any of those people last time. Jay and I were both here last time and this time. That kind of people was not sniffing around last time. Very few. Most of them were street activists. So why are we getting such massive publicity from people after we got permission to collect our signatures? And how come CBS San Francisco is doing a deep dive? And why did the TV San Francisco Chronicle do a deep dive? And why did CBS TV did that? And why is the neuroscientist saying everyone around him is talking about this? And how come we have all these people who are neuroscientists, doctors, lawyers, high-ranking physicians, former government politicians, and current government politicians all saying, I want to help out now?
And educators.
And educators. Is it because no one backs this and they think it's silly, or because everybody's basically behind this and they're terrified for their lives? So I would ask you where you think you're getting your information from, and I would question that source, sir. Okay, moving on. California conservative here who voted for Trump and proud to be American. Yeah, that's obvious. Yeah. I want to point out, we just saw Elon Musk do the Nazi salute twice, and then he tweeted out how Hitler did not kill the 6 million Jews.
Yeah, and
are you not seeing this? I mean, bro, are you not seeing this? Are you not? Stephen Miller, white supremacist declared by the Congressional Hispanic Caucus. Now he's the second in charge of immigration. Are you not? You're not picking this up? Did you notice when Trump did his nomination ceremony, he sat next to Jason Aldean? Jason Aldean sat in his personal box with Jason Aldean's wife. Jason Aldean did the country song called Try This in the Small Town that was filmed in front of the last courthouse to hang a black man dead. His music video, 2/3 of his music video, features a courthouse where a black man was hung up by a rope and strung till he died from strangulation by racist white people. That's in 2/3 of his video. He says it was a pure accident. However, he also wore blackface dressing up like Lil Wayne, the rapper, only 2 years prior. And then he sits next to a president who says Mexicans are rapists, and I want to reenact the Eisenhower deportation plan, which is called Operation Wetback. And then he picks a vice president who only wins his race in Ohio after running a television commercial that says, do you hate Mexicans? And then now he has a guy called Elon Musk who literally gave the Nazi salute twice on television, didn't apologize, didn't contextualize it, left it out there, and then this week said Hitler did not kill the 6 million Jews. I think you have got to be expletive dumb to not see what's going on. And I mean dumb as hell. Are you blind? Do you not have eyes? Do you not see that saying 6 million Jews weren't killed is bad and Nazi salutes are bad, and hanging out with guys who say, I hate Mexicans and do you hate Mexicans is bad? Are you just not seeing any of that?
I would also point out, if you are American and you are proud to be American, as is your right, as is your freedom, democracy, hey, well, you should know that the, what is it? Alien Enemies Act?
Oh, yeah, that's another one.
Yeah. How can you be a Republican and be for the forcible taking of people's property? Do you realize that you're supporting something that is literally antithetical to what you claim to believe? Do you realize this? And if you don't realize this, you should probably start looking with your eyes, listening with your ears, thinking with your brain, and not just parroting out the same talking points. We could parrot out talking points all we want, but we prefer to use our brains.
And facts.
I highly encourage you, if you really feel that America is the way to be and you're American and yeehaw woohoo, great, that's fine. I'm not saying anything against it. I'm just saying, if that's you, then you should look at what your people are doing and what your party is all about and all against, and take another look at what your people are doing. And when you wake up and realize what they're doing is antithetical to everything that your party and your people say you believe in, well, then maybe we'll have a bit different of a conversation going forward at that point.
I need to go after the enemies within. This will be the last election. I'll be a dictator on day one. Are you blind?
Yeah.
I mean, are you just blind?
My uncle served in the United States military, was a POW for some years over in Nam, and was rescued by fellow soldiers and was left behind enemy lines in a freaking torture camp by America, and was rescued not by America, but by soldiers who volunteered for this potential suicide mission, right? Because they believed in America, even though America wasn't being America. Now, get this. He lives in Texas, where most of my mother's side of the family's from. They're very conservative, very religious, Bible-thumping types. And even though he voted Republican, he still was able to say, Donald Trump is not a good businessman. Anyone who bankrupts a casino cannot be considered as good at business. That's just the way the universe works. Donald Trump is obviously not actually a Christian. Now, he'll stand there and say, hey, I'll be your guy, I'll champion your stuff. But really, Christianity is more than just saying that you're a Christian. Much like America. Being American is much more than just saying you're American. If you really are American, and I would challenge you, I challenge you to this, because the things that I have read in these comments says, to me at least, that you are not actually thinking, that you are not actually following America as it should be, that you're just claiming America and claiming American, but not actually following through with it. Imagine if the founding fathers did that. We'd all still be saying, "Ayo, cheerio. I'll have a cup of tea."
Let me get through at least 5 of these. Okay. Here we go. In 15 years, you've yet to accomplish even being on the California ballot, but I'm wrong. Yes, you're wrong. So I wrote the book in 2012. The first time we actually put the first serious Calexit initiative was up in 2016. So that's 9 years, not 15, basically close to half of what you're saying. So you're off by a third to 50%. So yes. Secondly, have you heard of a thing called gay marriage and marijuana legalization? So I've said this to 35 reporters. There was a thing called gay marriage, and they tried to ban it. And then there were some people who said, well, I don't want gay marriage to be banned. And then there were some people who said marijuana should be legalized. I'm old enough. I'm 48. I was here when those got started. Everybody laughed at them. There's never going to be gay marriage. Marijuana will never be legalized. Won't happen. Idiots. They had to file multiple initiatives over a 10-year period and try 2 or 3 times. The media laughed at them saying, well, you didn't get the first time, so I guess gay marriage is never going to happen. Well, you didn't get the second time, so I guess marijuana legalization is never going to happen. And then the media said, well, you don't even have a unified organization. You have like 2 or 3 groups. You can't even agree. So you guys are so stupid and unorganized, it's never going to happen. All those experts were dead wrong. Like every single one of them. They all laughed at all the gay marriage supporters and all the marijuana advocates. And they said, you took too long. You had too many tries. There were too many groups. Every single expert dead wrong. So why should we believe you? What's that based on? Also, you got your estimate wrong. So I will move to America. Hey, you're right. You know, nothing but love. And even Americans that want to come to California to get the hell out, you're welcome. So yeah, totally.
Yeah, many Americans would be much safer in California, and they know this.
Yeah. Again, independent voters, even left-leaning ones, won't vote for this. What's that based upon? So tomorrow at 9 a.m., we're going to have Jeremy Zogby. Zogby Polling is one of the most reputable polling agencies in all of America. It was referenced multiple times in the TV show The West Wing. They're highly sought after and respected. They just did a poll. 78% of Democrats feel America's falling apart. 65% of all independents feel America's falling apart. So when you say left-leaning independents won't back for this, what's that based on? Because we literally have a poll showing 4/5 of all Democrats and 2/3 of all independents across America, and you know it's going to be more liberal when you come to California, are feeling that the country's falling apart and they're scared for their lives. Those people who feel America's falling apart and scared for their lives aren't going to look at Calexit. Where does this number come that, you know, the majority of them won't back that or think that? They won't do anything to save themselves. You have some independent survey that beats Zogby polling. This literally came out 4 or 5 days ago. We're going to interview them. So where does this opinion come from other than you just feel strongly, which means absolutely nothing to us?
I would also point out Zogby polling is used by some of the biggest named professionals. People you yourself, Mr. Alien or Mr. or Mrs. Alien Isolationist Mapper, people you support. I guarantee you, people you support, given that you said you are conservative, I know for a fact that people you are in line with use Zogby polling, who is going to be backing up everything we say tomorrow.
Voting Democrat isn't the same thing as secession, sure, but this is a majority progressive place, and polls from before showed at least governing percentage supported this. Additionally, when you look at the amount of explosive support here, it's bigger than last time. So I think we've already addressed that. You have literally 2 people watching this. Now, here's what I want to point out. You're right on this show. However, we did TikTok and it was what, 10,000? So we did 2 TikToks and it was 10,000 each. When we did CBS, I think that was 1 or 2.5 million. So the reason that we did this show is because we want to be everywhere where the people are at. A lot of older people are not on TikTok. A lot of younger people are not on StreamYard or YouTube. So we go to different places, not because of the amount of views, but to make sure that every single group gets to have their questions heard. I'll also point out that I noticed, judging by the time that you made that comment, it was after I crushed the first 6 questions that you had. Then you went to basically kind of ridicule. Just that's kind of telling on you that, you know, you didn't go with more questions. You went with kind of insults that we just proved don't mean anything. The economy's trash here. My rate is 3,100. Well, actually, you have the understanding of economics completely wrong. So in places where rent is high is because the economy is doing well. There's a thing called inflation that happens with high economic activity. So if you look at a place called London, England, Paris, France, Tokyo, Japan, United Arab Emirates, rent's high. There is no place where the economy's strong and it's a major city metropolis with things going on and it's super affordable. That just doesn't happen. Perhaps you've heard of a place called New York City. So because you're right, rent's horrible. This guy's homeless. I'm living in the ghetto. You're right. Was homeless. Rent's horrible in California. You're totally right. Democrats have been a one-party state here. They certainly have a place to blame for that. But 2 things. One, rent being high is a sign of a strong economy, not a weak one. So you have that completely wrong. Secondly, when we Calexit, we're saying no income taxes. We're saying less taxes. We're saying more services for people and more money in the economy. All of that reduces rent. So the argument that you're complaining about is what Calexit solves. Any map pulled up will show the line of Kern County. Well, you're totally right that Bakersfield is a holdout. Absolutely. We had someone bring that up. The top 5th of California is really the strongest one. If you want to look at the forests, and I mean literally just the forests, not the entire county, so like just the forest region of Fresno and just the forest region of Madera County, then yeah, you got a point there. When you get to the flat plains, again, there's these people called Asians and Mexicans, and they tend to vote differently in urban areas, and they're projected to dominate the scene for the next 10 to 40 years. Additionally, when you look at Kern, there's this thing called Mexicans. And I know that Kern's very conservative. I've been down there. But every demographic profile shows that Latinos would be dominating that, and that over time, the majority of them will turn liberal. So yeah, hold on to Kern while you got it now, because it's going, and there's literally nothing you can do about it other than ship in about 200% more white people and forcibly remove about 50% of the Latin population. Good luck with that. It will never happen. Finally, here we go. I'm 40 and I lived up and down the state. I remember one. Yeah, You're right. It's called inflation, and it happens with economies that do very well. Is it different in London, Paris, Tokyo, New York, Vancouver? Name this place that's a thriving metropolis with a major economy, and wow, prices are cheap everywhere. Where is that?
I would also like to point out that, like, you know, I just turned 39 on the 5th. I remember drive-in movie theaters. Where'd those go? Oh, I guess this thing called Netflix kind of killed that, didn't it?
Oh my God, bro's losing his stuff.
Things change. It's part of life. It's how the universe works. Change is inevitable. It happens.
After we crushed all his questions, bro's back with the second insult. You were in Russia too long. So I want to point out,
Never been out of the country.
Yeah, we've never been in Russia, so I don't speak Russian. So I want to point out, if you look at the date stamp on these comments, they were made after we crushed the first 5 questions. Then he starts saying only 2 people on your channel, you were in Russia. So what does that tell you? That a person asks 5 questions, we completely dominate them, and then they stop asking relevant questions and go to insults. What kind of person does that? And what do you think about a person who shows that personality type? I'm not going to answer. I'm just going to put out facts to you. They started trying to insult us after we crushed 5 questions. What does that tell you?
And here's a fact. I don't even have a passport. I have never left this country other than one short little trip that was like a driving trip slightly across the Canadian border and back to visit a family member. And I was a kid. So, like, you know, really, the premise of the things that you are saying is so grossly inadequate that I'm feeling like we're now just kind of wasting time. Marcus is a very smart guy. If you got smart questions, he'll answer them and he'll give you the facts. But if you're just gonna, you know, false premise a bunch of, you know, little misnomer statements like that, I'm kind of not really going to be willing for us to spend much more time, because this is supposed to be about Calexit. And, you know, while we can address questions and shed light on Calexit stuff, now having to explain that I don't have a passport and have never left the country, and therefore you've been in Russia too long, is just absolute BS. Like, I mean, come on. Are you here to learn stuff, or are you here to troll? Which one is it? I'm genuinely asking you now, Alien.
Well, I want to hit a few of the other questions. So, because I think it's good to dispel this. Because as you know, there's a lot of ignorance, so white conservatives, as recall, 45% of Hispanics voted for Trump. As I explained, Latin people in California voted for Trump for jobs, not ideology. I already told you the story of a thing called the recall election against Governor Gavin Newsom, where a lot of Latinos voted for the recall of Newsom. Then Newsom came out and criticized them and said, oh my God, are all these Mexicans who just got here from Mexico suddenly saying, I back white supremacist Trump? No, Latin culture is a self-help culture. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Work for yourself. The Democrats cut that off with COVID. Voting for Trump after the COVID emergency is not an indication of ideological support, but of economic necessity. This election, according to your own take, was about economics. So why can't Latin people be part of that same dynamic? Here we go. 6 million votes for Trump, blah, 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 Kamala. Y'all seem upset when someone pushes back. No, I get excited. I like the debate. I'm the one saying I want to get to these questions. So let me point out how you're wrong, because literally on video, everybody saw me turning to Jason going, can I answer a question? Can I answer a question? So if I'm scared of that, why did I do that 3 to 4 times on video? Here we go. Moving on. People who fled Mexico to come to America really trying to leave America with you, you obviously don't know Latin people. So let me educate you as somebody who's Mexican. There's a group of people called Mexicans, and they know that the Southwest was stolen from them. And while they don't bring it up all the time, they tell their children all that. My abuelita, my grandmother, made sure I knew about this story before I was 5, and I had to hear it another 30,000 times before I was 32. Every Latin, Mexican grandmother, El Salvadoran, Guatemalan grandmother does that. So great story. I was hanging out with a guy, and he was a Marine. He's going to be a police officer, Caucasian person, awesome person. And he goes, Mark, come on. Nobody's really going to back Calexit. And then his buddy, who was going to go into police officer training, comes in the room. He's Mexican. This is his friend, not mine. He turns to his friend and goes, come on, guy, isn't this idea of California being its own country silly? And he looks at him and goes, well, it kind of was independent anyway, so that sort of makes sense. The look on my friend's face was shock. He's like, you're supposed to back me. You're my friend. He's Latino. There's a cultural baggage that goes with being Latin, where we know that America screwed us up and stole land and treated us as second-class citizens, and we're all aware of it. So I think you really don't know what you're talking about when it comes to Latin people on this. Sorry. Well, since I'm the only one watching, I guess no one is patting themselves on the back. Another insult. Want to point that out after he crushed a few more. You're polling a lot of people from SoCal. Do a poll with only Northern Californians. You're not qualified to make that statement. So unless you ran and have looked at the what's called byline data from the Stanford University Little Hoover Institute or the Reuters Ipsos survey from February 2017, you're not qualified to say who they were or were not surveyed. Secondly, since these are two of the most reputable polling agencies in all of America, the idea that they didn't poll everyone across California and they just focused on one and then lied to people, I really think is an insult to those agencies that you don't have the backing to make. Sorry. It kind of looks ignorant from polling. Sorry. Polls said Trump would lose twice. That's absolutely true. And I think those polls were biased. And they did it in 2016, and then they said the same thing in 2024, and they were wrong. There was a poll, though, out of the University of Southern California where I graduated, and it did predict Trump. Additionally, because the polls got Trump wrong doesn't mean that every poll failed. There's all sorts of other polls that came out. Like, women are going to be upset that abortion was repealed. That poll turned out to be true. That was the same time that the polls about Trump were wrong. So if some polls were right at the same time, how can you say all polls are wrong? Which is what you seem to be suggesting.
I would also point out that I actually predicted Trump would win. I'm not a pollster, but I'm the guy in, charge of this thing. And I was able to see it very clearly. I was able to predict it very clearly, long ahead. Any of y'all folks, y'all supported him. I actually knew he was going to win without ever wanting him to win. I knew he was going to win. It's just because, as someone who's middle ground, I can actually step outside of my own shoes and take a look at the whole picture and analyze the thing for what it is without my own personal biases, right? That's why I was able to see things ahead of time, why I was able to be accurate on these things. So just because a poll might have gotten a thing wrong doesn't actually bear any weight on Calexit. The guy running Calexit knew exactly that all of this that's happening was going to happen.
Said it early. Before others too.
Polls be damned.
We're just trying to get through and make sure everybody gets their questions answered. You're trying to point a 4-year president who's had 2 months of life when Biden inflation screwed up. Look, we weren't saying that Democrats did everything economically wonderful and Trump was horrible at the economy. What we're saying is that when Trump came on and he has people giving the Nazi salute and he says Mexicans are rapists, and he starts taking away rights from transgender people, and he bans Muslims, which is against the entire country of America going back to 1776. And then he says you don't get to have clean water, clean air, clean beaches, any regulations that you want, California. And then he publicly insults us on the stage. And then people are dead and dying, and he goes, I don't know if I want to help. That's what we're upset about. And we have not made the argument that Trump's horrible at the economy and Dems are great. So this is a nothing argument, and it's based upon nothing we've ever said. That aware of as elections get closer, Trump derangement syndrome is something people buzzing about, calling Calexit so what. So this is the theory that liberals are just upset right now and they'll get over it and they'll calm down. So this is great because this is what we call the crystal knock theory. So all of you who are saying, don't worry, Trump doesn't mean it, it's just talk, you liberals are crazy and you're snowflakes and you're just upset over nothing. We think that you're dumb. Here's the reason. There was a thing called Kristallnacht. There was a guy called Adolf Hitler, and he said, I'm going to do all these horrible things to the Jews. I'm actually quite an in-depth scholar of Nazi history. I did it because I never thought we'd return to it. I thought it was an archaic thing, but here we go. Found a new life for it. At that time where Kristallnacht was going on, SS officers would have Jewish girlfriends. That's a fact. So a lot of Jews said, well, you know, I know Hitler's saying you're not citizens and we'll wrap them up, but here's these SS officers with these really hot, beautiful Jewish girlfriends. So therefore, it's just talk. Every Jewish person who thought it's just talk and it's not going to be that bad and calm down and you guys are reading into it is dead. Every Jewish person who heard what was going on with Kristallnacht and said, we better take them at their word, and this is a sign of bad things to come, is in America and had children and grandchildren. And so we call it the Kristallnacht test. You're saying it's going to wear off. So people are just going to stop thinking about how he said, I'm a dictator on day one. They're going to stop worrying about how he cut funding off to all these nonprofits. They're not going to care that airplanes fell out of the sky. They're not going to worry about Elon Musk cut off Ebola funding accidentally. My God.
Oops.
They're just going to go, it's cool. You know, I understand. I'm a liberal and I'm okay with airplanes falling out of the sky. And I'm okay with no funding. And I'm okay with rights being taken away. And I'm okay with the Alien and Sedition Act, which historians have condemned for the last 150 years coming back. That's insanity. You clearly don't know liberals and you clearly think nothing of us. I'd like to hear that from a Maronite. I don't know what that means.
Someone from Marin. Take it from someone who was a pillar of Marin for 16 years.
I lived there for 4 years.
In San Rafael.
I lived there for 4 years.
You can ask anybody in Marin
Dumb.
County if they know who Jason Wright is, if they've ever tried my food.
Wow.
I ran the Tuesday night community dinner
Clearly
program
not
for
prepped.
free out of there. Do not pretend like,
Clearly not prepped.
I'm done.
All right. So
I'm done.
then he goes to laughing.
You just totally
which proves
ruined
that.
your own self. Cut your own feet out.
All right, I'm going to finish these though. Here, consensus of states means all states need to vote on that. As I said, no, it doesn't. I explained how you're wrong and you're not qualified to make that statement. Only the Supreme Court is, as written in the Constitution 200 years ago. You'll also need 55% of California votes to pass. True. Have you even gotten 554,000 signatures? No. Jason pointed out saying we're at 120,000, and then we're about ready to go to 220,000, which is good for where we're at right now. Even if you vote on this, it would create a 20-member panel to even see if California could govern itself. Actually, yes, it does create the panel, but that doesn't make secession happen. That educates the voters to make an informed decision. I'll also point out that now your questions are starting to contradict themselves. You were saying, you're just going to have a vote for this. And we go, no, we had to have people have the panel. And then you went back around to try to criticize the existence of the panel. The existence of the panel makes the vote more legitimate. It's what's called creating an informed electorate. That's a key phrase, informed electorate. So when elections happen and the international community wants to accept the results of those elections, you want to make it seem like the voters actually knew what they were thinking or talking about. Not that you just made a rash decision as an angry mob. So when you educate the voters about an issue before the vote, it holds incredible international weight with organizations like the International Criminal Court and the United Nations. The federal government has final say in this, absolutely, and that's how we're going to get the votes because the Republicans are more powerful than they've ever been since 1920. As we pointed out, Republicans hate us. You got to go back to the 1920s to find out where the Republicans own the House, Senate, presidency, and Supreme Court. They've never actually owned all four branches in close to 100 years. And so the Republicans are now more powerful than they've been in a century. Given that they hate us, they have the ability to vote us out. But again, polls and sentiments aren't necessarily votes. When reality sets in, people will consider the consequences of secession. Well, that's why we're doing the blue ribbon panel. Secondly, I don't think you're fully aware of the sentimentality here. We were here in 2016, 2017, 2018. People were for Calexit, but they keep saying at every meeting we went to, Are we really sure we're going to do this? Come on, guys. Are we really sure? Do we really want to leave America? Every single Calexit meeting we've had since now with this new round, no one says that. Last time, 2016 to 2019, about a third of the group, every single meeting, somebody would go and show reticence or reluctance about leaving America and ask, are we sure? Every single meeting now, not one person says that. So whatever you think that means. Why is this dude talking about minority parties with 1%? I don't know what that means. Ill-informed liberals strike again. Actually, we schooled you on the facts, but now this is your fourth attempt at just insulting us and not using facts to back up anything you said. I watched you for 12 years, but 12 years, you're still at it, I'm sure. I'm moving along. Libertarians, long shot, the Libertarians become a majority party. Well, here's the thing. When I started Calexit in 2012 with the book California's Next Century 2.0, I was told this is silly and no one will ever back it. It's silly to call California a nation state. No one's ever going to support that idea, Mark, and no one's ever going to support the Calexit idea. Every family Thanksgiving, I was laughed at by my family. And then 4 years later, the year 2016 happened, and 15 million people backed my idea, and my family had nothing to say at the next 4 Thanksgivings. It was dead quiet. So 2012 to 2014, ha, 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 ha. 2016 to 2020, there were no more jokes. I wasn't supposed to have any support. This is supposed to be a total crazy idea. How come 47.5% of the world's 5th largest economy backed the idea that only I supported 4 years before? Additionally, why did Gavin Newsom in 2020 start referring to California as a nation state while saying we're going to ignore all federal regulations on opening the economy, and we decided to approach the international market as an independent nation and deal with China directly, and he did it on Rachel Maddow, and everyone in California supported him. Now, every reporter calls California a nation state. So if I'm so wrong and silly, how did I get a third of the state to back me when everybody said that would never happen? And then how did I get the entire state to back that we can use the term nation state? And then how did I get the entire basically population to start recognizing we economically could survive as a nation state? When we started this in 2012, nobody would admit that. Now everybody does. So that's 3 separate things I was told will never happen, and you're silly and you're wrong, and all of the experts were wrong. Additionally, 2016 was pretty hard. We're coming back 4 years later with an even bigger amount of people and a bigger budget. So what facts do you have that we should believe in your interpretation and not mine? I'm not seeing it. You don't got my vote, so tell it where the one other guy is watching there. That's the 4th insult you've made. President Vance, President Trump. I would not be so quick to dismiss this idea as a long shot. Oh, Cat 175 has an opinion for alien isolationist mapper. I would not be so quick to dismiss this idea as a long shot. Let's do the scientific thing and ask the 22 million voters of the state to explore our options. How interesting.
Thank you, Kat. Someone's using their brain.
Okay, here we go. We're going to go to some of the other questions in the private chat. Okay, so this is from Dominic. Okay, Dominic. And here we go. So Dominic said, I have a lot of my friends that are Republican tell me it's not possible to exit the United States. So do they know about Texas versus White? Will they recognize consent to the state is there? And are they aware of what Erwin Chemerinsky said? Or are they completely ignorant of all those facts and are sure of their opinion? That's the thing to ask them. I'm going to bet hard money they don't know anything I just mentioned. So that means they can be ignored, because if you don't know what you're talking about, it's really not a good argument. California people that I spoke to with fear lost fear funding from Medi-Cal, military, transport, oil. Well, Dominic, nothing to fear at all. California is a donor state, which means we lose about $20 to $100 billion every single year, subsidizing 35 to 40 states. So independent California actually makes more money the second we're independent, and we're not losing money. If you bring home $100 and I take $20 out of your wallet, you're now poorer because of me. If I'm not in your life, I can't take that $20, which means you're now richer the moment I'm not in your life. So this is a non-issue at all. Money is additional. We lose absolutely no money at all, and that includes all the university grants and all the tuition and all the military, everything. Still a donor state. So don't worry, Dominic, we love you, but that is not an issue. Okay, here we go. Another one from Dominic. Rich people from Westlake, Calabasas, where I live, who own business, just want to pay less taxes, and they like Trump. We need to get them the answers to their concern. We got one. So ask them if they'd be okay with never paying state income taxes again, being able to sell their products on the international stage within a day versus 10 years, and then also ask them if they'd be cool with 50% regulatory burden being removed. We've already done that survey. Every single one of them will say that's wonderful, and that only happens with Calexit. So again, I know a lot of Republicans. I'm in the Valley. I helped Leo Zaki run for governor. He's a millionaire. I know a lot of these people. I don't agree with them, but when they're half your family, you got to kind of know what they're saying. I don't agree, but yeah, this is pro-business. So most media people who are against, or rich conservatives who are against Calexit, don't know 50% regulations gone, business income taxes wiped out, more international sales, faster return on investment, and more customers coming and buying your product. All of that's good for an economy. Literally nobody who's brain functioning will say that that's not good. So run that by them and see what they have to say. I'm surrounded by Trump supporters. Fair enough. Why didn't they leave? Right? So if they hate California so much and they can't stand it and they're going to go when we're independent, why didn't they already gone? We've lost so many conservatives. If they're still here after all the trash talking, it's because they're never going to go anywhere. And they're the minority voter, and they're going to have to do what the majority say. That's how democracy works, right? Just like us liberals have to accept that Trump's America's president, everybody here is going to have to accept what we want for our place. Democracy works both ways. Okay, yeah. Here we go. Is the UK better off from Brexit? This is from Kristen, and we're going to take that right now. Sorry for everybody for the wait, but we will get every question answered. Oop, hold on. We're going to get everything answered. Is the UK off better than Brexit? I think that's a complex question. So if you ask some English people, they'll say it's better because they have more control over their society. Brexit got started because there were a ton of Syrian immigrants flooding Europe. And a lot of English people didn't want those Muslims coming into the country because they feared, this is during the era of the War on Terror, they come and blow people up. So that's what spread a lot of the fear. Additionally, a lot of the Brexit movement focused on that terror. And additionally, they pushed a message that, which was a lie, that they were going to get more back from the government when they became independent than they didn't. They put it on a green bus and drove it around town, and then it turned out to be a made-up statistic. So there was some misleading stuff there. I would say their economy is not stronger after Brexit at this moment. Totally true. However, if we're looking at where the future of the world economy goes, England's now better situated to be able to go where they need to go. Do they need to have the Chinese yuan? Do they need to have the American dollar? They don't have to ask 20 other countries for permission on how to situate their economic currency flows. China's taking over. America's starting to recede. The World Bank's already said this is true. England's now in a better position to navigate those waves than the EU because they have more freedom. Now, will they make those decisions? I don't know. When it comes to Brexit, though, I think what's important to point out is that all of the experts said it would be the end of England, their economy would collapse, the British pound would collapse, and literally all of those experts were dead wrong. So England survived. It's still here. The economy didn't collapse. The pound didn't collapse. Russia didn't invade England. They were saying all sorts of wild stuff when this was happening. All those predictions failed. Now, is it the best thing ever? I wouldn't say so. But can we say it's horrible? Well, not according to the experts. They were all wrong. So it's a mixed bag. Secondly, I would point out that we're not doing what England's doing. They were kind of moving away to independence so they could not support increased diversity. California is moving towards independence so that we can continue to embrace diversity while there's a president who seemingly hates brown-skinned people from around the world. All right, going on. We're going to make sure every question gets answered. What is seen cannot be unseen. Okay. An activist friend says, this is from Kristen too. We're going to make sure to answer it. Here we go. Activist friend says that Calexit is too radical and eccentric. Is there any response to this critique? Well, your activist friends are all right. This is a radical option. It is unique. It's not normal. It's a total radical departure from normal. We think that if you're not aware that things are so bad, you better start looking at radical times, then you're blind. So we absolutely admit this is radical. But the president, when was the last time the president got elected and said, I'll be a dictator on day one? This will be the last election ever. I'm looking for enemies within. I want to bring back the Alien and Sedition Act. The answer is never. There's never been a U.S. president saying that. So additionally, Pete Hegseth, Secretary of Defense, he was asked, would you follow an order to gun down protesters if given? And he would not answer the question. So what do you think that says? Then Elon Musk gives the Nazi salute twice, doesn't apologize, doesn't contextualize it. And then this week says the Nazis actually didn't kill those 6 million Jews. I know exactly what the hell that is. So we are in crazy radical times. This is why I'm going back to Kristallnacht. If you were one of the good German Jews who saw what Hitler was saying and saw Kristallnacht and thought, you know, leaving Germany's too radical. I've been here 6 generations. I'm not going to go. That's a radical option. We should wait it out and see how it goes. They're all dead. That's the answer. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Trump is just saying it and he doesn't mean it and it's going to be just wonderful. Could be. But if somebody came into your house and said, I'm going to punch you in the face. 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 And they go, just kidding. Do you believe them? That's a question for all of you. Because that's what you're asking. I know this guy said he's going to punch me in the face 18 times in a row, but then he said he's joking. So therefore I know it's a joke. To me, that's not joking. That's them telegraphing what they're going to do, and they just want to do it in a way where they're not called out. And I don't find any debate on that. I think that's a basic human condition, and you can see right through it. I see Calexit as Dem versus GOP, a lot of crossover both ways. This is from Kristen. There is some truth to that. However, I would say it's not wedded to the Democratic Party at all. So all of the supporters in 2016 and all of the supporters now don't approach and say, I'm a Democrat. What they do is they call us and say, I'm transgender. I'm a woman. I'm a protester. I'm LGBTQ. I'm Black. I'm Latin. I'm undocumented. I'm a Muslim. And then they say, I'm scared. After we talk to them for 10 minutes, they might bring up that they're a Democratic voter. So whatever that's called, nobody's approaching saying this is about protecting the Democratic Party and we're all Democrats and we love the Democratic Party. Californians don't exactly love the Democratic Party. They just don't vote for the Republicans because they don't want it to. It's kind of a utilitarian decision. So there is some crossover for Republicans. We're talking about lower taxes and better economy. And we're talking about raising services without raising taxes. Republicans love that. And this is not a strictly Dem issue. There is absolutely some crossover completely. Calexit is, so this is from Dominic. Oh, hold on. Let me see if I can get this. Whoops. Sorry. Calexit is a new democracy. Yeah. But how different does an independent nation of California have to be from the existing California? I've always said not that much. Now, obviously, it's up for the voters, but a couple things most people aren't aware of. Our Constitution is the third largest in the planet. It's much larger than the U.S. Constitution, and it protects more rights than the American Constitution. Secondly, our governors already signed trade deals and treaties with foreign countries as if they were a foreign present. Third, our legislature travels to foreign countries like Armenia and signs peace treaties with them. Fourth, California already has a regulation for every single thing the federal government regulates. So for OSHA, there's CalOSHA. So why do we need to do a lot of change when we already have governors who act like presidents with treaties and trade deals? Our legislator already acts like Congress and recognizes foreign countries, and we have international connections, and our government already does everything the federal government does. Do we really need to modify that much? Now, obviously, whatever the voters say is what they say, but I always bring that up. Okay, last question. Here we go. We've got them all. We're doing the last question. This one is from Kristen. Is the goal that California U.S. citizens would become dual U.S. California citizens? Yes. Nobody loses American citizenship. We've never said that. We've always said people would get California citizenship. Everybody here would be dual American and California citizens, which is not illegal under American law, since they give that out to Canadians and South Koreans, meaning you can, and Israelis, you can be a dual citizen holder. All three of those countries are able to do that. Famously, that's been on TV. You'd be a dual citizenship holder. Your children, though, born here, would only have California citizenship. So you would never experience a hardship traveling back and forth between California and America. Your kids might be a different story. All right, we're going to end it there. That's 2 hours. Thank you all for being here. Please ask more questions in the future. We appreciate you asking questions, and we will talk to you soon. Want to make sure to remind everybody to Viva Todos Californios. Thank you.